Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, automate tasks, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Lior Klisman, a multi-time founder, coach, and the creator behind Klisman Coaching and Klisman Labs. Lior's journey is a profound study in resilience, spanning service in the IDF Intelligence Unit, building a career in cybersecurity, and successfully scaling and exiting 2 companies, the last of which was acquired in 2022. Today, he focuses on helping founders and leaders become the CEO of their own lives, working through limiting beliefs, conflict, and communication. His insights into failing fast, getting back up, and using strategic adaptation as a way of life will provide a powerful framework for our audience. Lior, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Thanks for having me, David.
Lior, you have a pretty interesting background. Your story spans continents, careers, and a lot of early grit. You grew up in a low middle class family in Israel, started working at 7 delivering groceries, and moved to the States as the typical immigrant with just $2,000 in your pocket before landing in cybersecurity. Can you walk us through that journey in your own words and share which early experiences shaped you most as a founder?
Well, growing up has been, difficult. I'm definitely not the only one not experiencing that. As you've said it well, low middle class. We weren't in the poverty line, but I also don't think we were very far from it. Growing up, I always had a curiosity of what it feels like to work. That curiosity came from my parents' friends. They all had small businesses that were all quite successful. I never really understood why my parents had those friends. Being with people that can afford things you can't is not easy at times. So I became very intrigued by the notion of, if I can work and make my own money, maybe I can build a life different than what my parents could. Now, by no means am I saying that my parents didn't provide me everything we needed. We were rich in heart, but we weren't rich in the median of things. So at 7, I started doing grocery deliveries, as you've mentioned, around my neighborhood. My mom didn't know about that. She probably wouldn't have liked it so much, shall she have known. It was the first time that I started making a few bucks. I got paid for every delivery. I enjoyed it. After school, I would go to the store, and the owner of the store knew me well because that's where my mom and my parents were also doing shopping. But that's before the time of the big grocery stores and the big chains. Your local grocery store is where you would buy your thing, your local market. So started doing that. Loved it, loved every part of it. And then when I was 12, I started a business. I can't say that I started it, but I started it with somebody who already started it, if that makes sense. And that was selling pretzels outside of soccer stadiums. I was a big fan of a team. I went to every game with my dad and then with myself, with other friends and their parents. And I realized that I'm coming in hours before the game and I'm usually staying hours after the game. Why don't I just make a few dollars out of it? So the same bagel spot or pretzel, we call it bagel, pretzel for people who don't know what that is. I was buying one usually before the game. And one day I came to the person and said, hey, do you mind if we actually work together? Let's start another cart and I'll sell on this side of the field. You'll sell where you are and let's share the profits. He was nice enough. I don't know if I would have ever done that to somebody else, but he was nice enough to say, yes, let's do it. And that's where the journey started. I was always fascinated by creating my own thing. Creating my own thing meaning, hey, how can I create a company that provides for my family to come, to provide to help my parents, but also the family that I will have one day. That notion kind of was my North Star and my compass on what I want to do in life. So of course, I went to the military because it's mandatory in Israel. And I've went into security. My mom worked for the government. Security was something that was spoken on the dinner table quite often. Loved computers. Got my first computer, took it all, completely took it apart and then rebuilt it. So I was fascinated with hardware, how to build things, how to break down things. So in the Israeli military, I was in intelligence unit. I was an operational officer and got to know way more about cybersecurity, way more about IT systems, networks, infrastructures, things of that notion. And I realized that after I finished my military service, that I want to do things within that sector. That it's the sector that that I know so well. It's the sector that I have passion for, and I want to work within it. Took years until I actually started working in it. After the military, I went to my self-pilgrimage to India to backpack to find who I am and what I want to be in life. So backpacked across India, had a lot of time to think about what's my goals, what my future is going to look like, what I want to do. And then lived in a couple of countries in Europe, Germany, England, and Sweden, and then moved to the US. So in my life, I lived in 7 different countries across 3 continents. When I was a kid in Singapore and Belgium with my parents, and then as an adult in numerous different countries. So I had to reinvent myself more times than I can think of, or more times than I actually liked, being ripped from what you know, put in a place that you don't know, making a life there. And again, rinse and repeat, needing to move back. Usually, if we moved back to Israel, it was to a different city because we wanted something different. So again, new friends, new school, and over and over and over again. Same thing as an adult. Went to live somewhere, had to create a community, and then decided, I want to move to another place. Rinse and repeat. So I think that resiliency that you've mentioned and that can-do attitude was exactly the forefront of me becoming an entrepreneur. That rinse and repeat, which we do in startups all the time.
I want to jump in here, right? Because resiliency, right, and fortitude are essential parts for any entrepreneur, right? You go through failure, you go through challenge, you need to be willing to persist. But there's something else in your story that I think is perhaps even more profound than those two that you mentioned, right? Curiosity. You mentioned from a young age you were curious about what it would be like to work. You were curious and fascinated by computers. You took your first one apart and you rebuilt it. Where do you think curiosity has provided you with the greatest advantage or benefit when it came to your entrepreneurial pursuits?
I don't think curiosity alone is big enough to become an entrepreneur.
Of course.
It definitely helped that. I don't know if it's curiosity or persistence. To be curious, but then having the persistence to actually go and try things. And even if they don't work, not giving up and trying them again, rinse and repeat. I think that's by itself maybe the biggest thing to become an entrepreneur. But my curiosity was driven by the lack of materials or the lack of security, median security that I grew up with. It became a curiosity of what would it look if it was different. What it would look if I could have been where my family friends were, my friends in school that their parents could afford things. How would that look like? Back then I thought that, as most kids, or actually most people in the world, that money buys you happiness. Now I know it's as far from the truth as it can be, but I thought, hey, if I have money, I'll be happy. If I'm happy, I can do X, Y, Z. So the curiosity came from a very young age, and I think it helped to think about what's possible. And that's what I teach young entrepreneurs nowadays when I mentor kids from low socioeconomic communities. I educate them on this curiosity, to be curious enough to try something. And if it doesn't work, you move forward. But having that curiosity to understand what's possible.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You can't detract from the necessity of, resilience and fortitude and all of these other things that are essential for any entrepreneur to succeed. It's just that curiosity, right? In the way that you were saying it to me, what I see is that you weren't just curious and interested. Of course, you were pursuing that, but what you were looking for was a solution, right? Any entrepreneur, you can't you can't found a business that will be worth anything if you're not providing solutions, right? Finding a problem and solving it, even when it comes down to resourcefulness, right? Your curiosity started with resourcefulness. How do I achieve X, right? For myself, for whatever it is I'm curious it will bring to me. But definitely an incredible story and journey you've been on. Part of this, Lior, you mentioned is, failure, right? Being able to persist regardless of when things didn't work. How did your ethos or your method of thinking evolve through failure to perhaps lead to some profound pivots and shifts in your own journey?
I remember when I was about 16, I had a mentor, again, a family friend, a mentor, somebody I could speak to about aspirations in life and things I might want to be doing when I grow up. Back then, he said to me something that stuck with me, something that is quite profound. And what he said was, if you see failure as something that will stop you, as something that you've done wrong or something bad that you have done, then failure will always be wherever you go. But if you see failure as a learning experience, just like, I'm pretty sure he quoted the light bulb, pretty sure. It was, hey, it took 999 times, and that 1,000 times it just worked. Meaning he didn't fail 999 times. He just tried 999 different ways. So if you look at failure as trying something, so it stuck with me. It stuck with me that, hey, don't see failure as something bad, because so many of us see failure with a negative context without thinking about the content in which failure comes. Because the content is you tried something that you might have not tried before. You're going to try something that's new. It might work. It might not. Will you let that define you? And if you do let that define you, then every failure is going to set you back. It's that 1 step forward, 3 step backwards. But if you see it as 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, then you realize, okay, I am on a journey. It's not about the destination. It's about that journey there. So that's really stuck with me. And I think that's how I see failure. It's like, I don't mind failing constantly because I have a positive context about it. Because every failure gets me to where I want to be. And without that, I cannot get to where I want to be. It almost sounds like a cliche, but it's so true.
It's not. I love this, though. This is something I have a good analogy on as well, because I believe the same thing, right? Failure is necessary to learn. But you're talking about, the journey, the destination. You need to have the destination in mind. You may not know exactly what it is, but if we look at the necessity for failure to get to that destination, and we use the analogy of a guided missile, right? A long-term guided missile. They hit targets extremely accurately. And where they need to know their destination, how they get to their destination is by making constant mistakes, right? Going off path a little bit to the left or a little bit up. And it's constant readjustments over the long period that have them hit that target directly. So, in this situation, failure is necessary. How can you learn and improve without learning how not to do things and how to stay off of the path that you shouldn't be on?
And I like the missile connotation and analogy here. It's very true. You just have to try. As the cliche says, it doesn't matter how many times you fall, it's how fast you get up.
Absolutely.
And it's truly that. How many times are you willing to get back up? And I fell so many times, more times than I can count.
But failure led you somewhere, right? You've sold 2 companies, right? You've learned through experience and grit that failure is necessary. When you fall down, you have to get up, you have to move forward. So you had 2 exits, and you shared that you realized that, hey, money is not really going to bring you happiness. There's more beyond that as well. As I understand it, that's what led to you founding now Klisman Coaching, right? Where you work with entrepreneurs and leaders to perhaps maybe help avoid some of the mistakes you made, but also to perhaps adjust and learn from the mistakes that they make. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now with Klisman Coaching and what it is you're doing with entrepreneurs and executives.
So throughout my journey of creating the companies that I've created, being an immigrant in the US with $2,000 in my pocket and working illegally as a barista and then starting companies and then having a first quite small exit. For me back then it seemed like a whole world, but it was quite small in the sense of startups that I used most of that money to start the other company that I've sold in 2022. That was a quite meaningful exit. Something happened after the exit I was sure that I'll see the money in the bank and all my problems will just vanish. Now, I knew deep inside that that's not what's going to happen, but there was almost as a wishful thinking that I might see the money and just be so happy. My problems are gone. I can live life to the full extent of it. And then something hit me, realizing that the money in the bank and my happiness had no correlation to one another. Yes, I could afford more things. Yes, I could have done what I like. It's definitely a tool, but I wasn't necessarily more happy. And I've started in the past, I think it started around 2019, that I went on my own personal growth journey, another self-pilgrimage, if you will, of doing retreats and getting certified in different modalities of coaching. And it wasn't because I yet knew that that's what I want to do. It's because I knew that I want to do it for my own improvement, for my own growth, for my own patterns, trauma, negative emotion, limiting beliefs, all the things that we talk about usually when we talk about coaching, that I want to not solve it, because some of it is not necessarily, you don't want to solve it. It's not like a problem that needs solving. It's a problem that needs awareness. It needs presence to it. If I can name what I'm feeling, if I can name a pattern, that's already half of the work. What drove me to start Lior Klisman Coaching, or my coaching practice, was a deep insight and a deep knowing that my purpose is going to be to help others. And it struck me that my purpose will be helping others to help others to help others. So if I can help one person, and they can hopefully help another person that helps another person, wow, what a beautiful world it will be, like the lyrics of the song goes. So it was a deep knowing that that's what I want to do in life. So I took my certificates in different modalities. I took my founder journey, my upbringing, all of that, condensed it into an offering that I want to help first-time founders grow themselves from a founder, become a CEO, not just of the business, of their lives. That I want to help executives who want to leave their companies and start new companies with all that scarcity, because it's a scary thing to go from security to no security and there's no promises. And also help people that come from communities like I came from, mainly middle schoolers and high schoolers, to understand truly what it means being the CEO of their life. I mean, to know that the actions they take can make or break them, that it's within their realm of possibilities to choose what they want to do and to go and explore that. And that's how Klisman Coaching became to be, in the coaching that I provide to others. And pretty much my coaching is a bit different, if you will, from some other coaches that I see, because I bring in the experience as a founder, the experience of the coaching. But I'm also not there just to ask them questions. I'm also there to share some experiences, some metaphors about my life. Because I feel that with me sharing that it wasn't always perfect, the majority of the time it wasn't, that it can change something within someone. That's the majority of the work that I do, is show them what's possible for them by explaining what was possible for me. And if you saw me as growing up, you would think, hey, I don't think this person will amend to anything. And I've heard that so many times in my upbringing. Hey, you're not going to do anything in your life.
So you share stories and you put yourself in a position where you're relatable to your clients to help them perhaps believe that they can achieve the results they're looking for and be driven towards them. Because, you know, a lot of books and sources and gurus out there who share these frameworks and these methodologies for personal improvement and development and changing your life, it seems out of touch often, right? But to drive, I suppose, not just belief, but also the motivation that will drive the action, people need to be able to see it as a realistic or a tangible result for themselves. So I love what you're doing with sharing your own story and your own perspectives and making it realistic and relatable for your clients to help them actually make those shifts and changes within their own life when at times perhaps I'm sure it seems unachievable for them.
Yeah, I mean, I can be accused of it as well, but so many of us, we go to do a retreat or we go to study something or we read books about personal growth. We get extremely enlightened after we finish the retreat or after we finish that amazing book, after yada, yada, yada. Yet we don't integrate it to our life. We read a book to say we have read it. We don't stop during the book to think about, how does this pertain to my life? What can I take from the lessons learned in this book or in this retreat and actually implement them? For example, Tony Robbins is a great example. People go to his retreat, they come extremely lightened. You see that there is a spark. He's one of the best at it. The problem is 2 weeks afterwards, they go back to the same old. There is not a constant, implementation. Now, it's not for everyone, so I can't generalize. But it happens so often. It happened with me. So I think with founders or with people needing coaching, the first and foremost important thing is to create a container and a safe space for them to be who they are without the masks. That mask that we put on so many times, and if we put on that many masks, we forgot that some masks that we actually put on, starting to peel them off will be so hard. So first is to have a space where all masks can be peeled off, where you see the true essence of the person. From there, we can actually start the work. And, coaching is never coaching an individual. It's coaching with and through an individual. So the work is done together. But the majority of the work for that individual that's coming in for coaching, mentoring, advising, whatever it may be, the work is outside of the sessions. Because in the sessions, you can only do so much. You have an hour, 2-hour session, for example. The work happens outside. Are you willing to take the lessons learned in the book, in the coaching session, in the retreat, in your plant medicine ceremony, whatever it may be? Are you willing to integrate it into your life, into your day-to-day mundane life? That's where the magic truly happens.
So, information is useless without action, without follow-up, without implementation, of course, right? So, Lior, you work with your clients in this way to help them change in some pretty phenomenal ways. Do you have any stories that you might be able to share with us, without sharing any personal details or names, of course, about how it is you came and met a client where they were at, took them through this process of coaching through them, and what result did they achieve through this?
About so many, but when you've mentioned that, 2 stories came to mind. One story was someone who came that worked in an organization. She got to me through her organization, then I know the leadership of that said organization. And she came in with difficulties moving to the next level in her career. They have big expectations for her. She has even more expectations for herself, yet something was missing. What she thought she wanted, after a few coaching sessions, we realized that it was actually opposite. That was pretty surprising for both of us. Because if you come and you say, I want XYZ, and then you realize that XYZ is actually the opposite thing of what I want, that's a shocker. Do I not know myself enough to think that I wanted one thing, but I actually wanted another thing? One of her biggest problems was doing grunt work. If you wanted to make her unhappy, grunt work. Unfortunately, the position needed a lot of grunt work. In order to grow, there is the work that no one loves to do too much. Reviews, reviewing agreements, looking for the devil within the details. All those things that, it's not fun work. Together we learned how can she gamify it. She loves games, board games, chess, you name it. How can we gamify it? How can we make it fun? How can we take something that is considered to be such work that most don't like doing, of which will make you unhappy, and flip the script on it? Can we look at it as a game? I'm going to find the devil in the details. I'm going to make a game out of it. And every time I do it, it's 1 point for me. I'm winning. So that essence of winning became her driving force. Now she loves doing the work that she used to hate, that we all hate. But if you just flip the script, change the mindset, reframing of what it is, be a leader without a title, which is a book I love, meaning you can be a leader within a role, doing the best you can absolutely be, doing better work than you've done yesterday. If every day you try to do a bit better than you've done the day before, wow, the change that you experience. Now she's a partner at that organization. A year later, she's a partner at that organization, teaching her now direct reports how to gamify those things that they don't like doing. So that's a success story that I absolutely love. I love it not because I take credit for it, but because she overcame something she hated to do so much.
No, this is incredibly powerful, right? Because looking at those small things that you might not enjoy doing, but if you can, again, reframe your mind around the approach to it and find value in it, even if you don't then love doing it, but it's something you can do and enjoy at least a little bit more, it leads to incredible results, right? Becoming a partner at the firm that you're working for example, stepping into that leadership role because you're now able to master the things that perhaps you were avoiding for fear of pain, of discomfort, of whatever it was that you were labeling that with. Lior, this is incredible work that you do with your clients. When we look at the results and the impact that you can have, many coaches are in a similar position where they know they can drive profound results with the people that they're working with. However, again, many coaches have a real challenge or a real difficulty in today's market, especially for those who are very specialized and, the market broadly can't understand what they do or differentiate them from all of the noise and the confusion that's out there. Client acquisition can become a real challenge, and it can really stifle potential and growth for coaches and consultants alike. When it comes to what you're doing at Lior Klisman Coaching, what is it that you're identifying as those forces that might be impacting your ability to scale in today's market?
And you hit the nail on the head with it. I think this is what I know. Client acquisition is extremely difficult for coaches in a day and age where there's so much social media, and you have coaches of all walks of life, and there's so many different types of coaches. Client acquisition is extremely difficult. For me, personally, clients come to me usually word of mouth, and that's because of the work that I've done in the past, and not less importantly, the footwork habit. The footwork habit is what I call putting yourself out there, whether if it's social media, but more importantly, telling everyone that that's what you do. Sharing your story, being on podcasts, for example, going to events. I can't say it will be dishonest for me to say that even for me, the growth of my coaching practice is very slow. But I also choose it to be that way. Meaning, I cannot say, it's just the market. I can't say it's outside forces. It's the market, it's the competition. That's why I don't have growth. So it is an inner choosing that, hey, I don't want to work with clients every day, all day. I want to do other things with Klisman Labs and other companies that I'm starting. So I want to select the clients I want to work with. If it was that I wanted to see every hour of every single day clients, I would have to do way more than I'm doing in the realm of putting myself out there. Maybe working with companies that can help you get leads. I've not worked with them, so I don't know really how it is, what's the experience. But in this difficult time, where can you put yourself more out there? Even if it's uncomfortable, because most of the times it's uncomfortable, to a point that you're in every room you need to be, you're on social media. For example, I extremely didn't like making videos of myself. Or, you see so much coaches on Instagram doing that, videoing themselves. But I'm okay, if I'm teaching others to have a breakthrough, and that's what I've done, failing, okay, I'm going to try it. And I'm going to absolutely hate it. But because I hate it, I'm going to do it even more. Because at some point, I know that, as much as I don't like it, at some point it will flip on itself. And I'll actually start to enjoy it. Now I enjoy it. But in the beginning, I resented it. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I spoke. I didn't like, I had all this vulnerability of putting myself out there. Wow, it's hard to put yourself over there. I don't know, maybe it's our age. You see, people that are younger and they have no problem putting themselves out there. It's like a full-time work. And I actually gained respect for influencers and things like people who are on social. It's literally a full-time work. And it's not an easy work.
Putting yourself out there, right? I mean, if you believe in what you do and you know you can drive those results, you should be shouting it from the mountaintop. Why should you be nervous or ashamed about knocking on every door, talking to every person that you know and telling them about what you do, the passion and the purpose that's behind it? And sure, growth can be slow if it's through referrals and word of mouth, but as a multi-time founder yourself, you know that slow growth at the same time can also be incredibly powerful, right? You have time to test what it is that you're doing, see the real results, and make the necessary adjustments to get better and to improve and make sure you really are driving the best outcome.
Investment in yourself, it compounds over time. You just have to do it more and more and more.
Yes.
Even if it feels uncomfortable.
Yes. So Lior, you noted that right now, the position that you're in, you've been growing through word of mouth and through referrals like many coaches do. And you haven't necessarily started doing things like working with outside people for bringing you leads or whatever that might look like. However, you are a multi-time founder, and you know that failure and testing is necessary for growth in all ways. I know that you've been thinking about, what to test, maybe even already been starting to test about how to move beyond just the word of mouth. Can you share with us, even if you're not testing it now, what have you been thinking about as to how to grow and how to scale beyond what you've been doing now, whether it's testing, whether it's approaches that you think are going to work the best based off of your previous business experience?
Yeah. I mean, of course, the two most famous letters of this day and age starts with A and ends with I, become something I'm testing quite often. And I'm testing with AI in a few different ways. One, I'm trying to automate things that I do repetitively in my business. So when I look at clients, when I do the initial discovery, all this can be automated. It helps potential clients because it's faster for them. They don't have to necessarily schedule a call first. When we come to a call, I know much more about them, then we can actually make the call way more beneficial. But I'm also been testing with some automations how to get in front of more people. So using agents to build pipelines for my coaching practice and for other businesses that I do. Okay, if I can make an agent that can get me a pipeline, the pipeline can look in numerous different ways. For example, a pipeline can be, okay, who do I know from my actual network that runs a podcast? I can go to them, be on more podcasts. So that's one thing that can use AI to automate for me. And even send messages to those people, even reply, even get myself booked on them and with my calendar and do all that without even needing to press a single key or press my mouse for one moment. Just setting it up, letting it run. So I've been testing with it. Getting pipelines for founders that are just started, first-time founders. How can I reach them? How can I reach them in a sense that will be appealing to them to come to a call? And that's my experience, blend with my coaching experience, getting them, hey, let's just have a call. Just see what happens. If you're not going to be built for it, just see what happens. So I've been playing with that with AI as well on how to automate. But mainly, I have not yet made the decision to go and try to work with an outside organization that can get me leads. Not that I don't think they do a great job. I'm sure some do a better job than others, like anything, like any business. I just want to be my own creator of how I get them. There is something within me that says if I need another company that will give me leads for coaching specifically, will there be the clients that I actually want to serve? That's my thought, and I'm still running with it. Might change my mind. I don't know. That's where I am now. So I've been trying to play with automations and agents myself. Technology freak, so of course I'm going to try to build agents for every single thing that I'm doing, even for my own life on a personal level. So yeah, that's really what I've been working on right now.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic, right? A lot of testing, a lot of trial and error. What's going to work? What's right for you? What's right with you, right? Especially as it comes to client acquisition. How can you hand off something, whether it's to an AI system or an outside person, that's going to bring you clients for coaching when coaching is so personal, right? It's so intimate. You need to know that of course, you're going to like them, they're going to like you, but you're in a position to actually be able to help them, right? And enjoy going through that process as well. When we look at this in a little bit more depth, AI and humans and the connections that are still most important in today's world, how would you say coaches and consultants should use AI to support their practice without crossing boundaries on privacy and confidentiality with your experience in, of course, security?
I would like to put there is a divide between consultants and coaches. Consultants, depending on what they're consulting on, their confidentiality looks different than a coach's confidentiality. If you're a consultant, your clients don't necessarily tell you all their deepest secrets, their most vulnerable secrets, where with coaching, if you're a good coach, they open up to you. That's how they feel really safe. So in my coaching practice, inside the session, I don't use any technology. There is still, and I have it right next to me, there's still the old notebook that I write information. Some clients that I work with when we're working on their business will add, AI meeting recorder like Fireflies or Otter or the likes, or even Zooms. So we get the transcript, because that helps both sides. But when we're talking about vulnerable things, usually I will not record it. That's their place. That's their place to be secure. Consultant doesn't have that pedigree. They don't need to. Depending what you're consulting. If you come and you're a consultant that you help businesses with automating their repetitive work. If you create an AI agency, for example, the data, you're using the client's data. You're not using your data. You're coming internally to make an automation for something for them internally. So you can advise on some security things, but you don't really need to. It's their systems. If their system's not secure, then there's another problem that's completely unrelated to the automation. So I think with coaching, confidentiality is extremely important. What I see and what I do with myself, for myself, is I take it extremely seriously, and there's not much technology that happens within the coaching. I can use technology and AI for attracting clients. I can use it for some repetitive work that I'm doing internally that doesn't have any client data, names, what they speak about, anything like that. As a consultant in some things that I'm doing with Klisman Labs, then the confidentiality of the client just becomes, okay, how I keep track of my clients. So I keep it in a secure, obviously, way. All the rest, there isn't much privacy that I need to do. I don't hold personal identifiable information. And if I do, they're in systems that have the compliance for that. Meaning, if I use Google Drive, client's Google Drive, Google has their own, I can't enhance Google security. Google security is one of the best there is. I don't need to. I'm downgrading it to be very silly analogy so people who are listening can understand. We can easily take this conversation to like privacy, security, which will be a completely different conversation.
Surely. Lior, I think just with what you're saying there, it's a great demonstration of the fact that at the end of the day, right now, and I think forever, AI is a tool, right? It's to be used for certain things, and you shouldn't cross the line that's drawn in the sand for others. Confidentiality, personal information. You've got to be very careful around not just what you're putting into it, but also what you're asking of it, especially from a personal side and a relationship side of things. As a coach, as a consultant as well, in some ways, you have to rely on your expertise and your insight. And when AI comes into play, it's for the leverage. It's for the additional help that it can provide. It's not a be-all and end-all. And if that's how you're using it, you've got some other concerns to have, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lior, your story covers early hustle, global moves, building and exiting companies, and now helping people become the CEO of their own lives. For the founders, coaches, and growth-minded listeners who are in the middle of their own growth shift, what's the single most important piece of advice you would leave them with about resilience, setting clear goals, and keeping going long enough to reach the success that they're aiming for?
The best advice that I can give: gamify the things you don't like doing, make them into a game. Wake up every day and trying something that you might have not tried before. So trial and error, and again, gamify it. And just don't give up. Just don't give up. That's, I think, the best advice. It sounds, so many people talk about it, but just don't give up. If you want something, go try it. If it didn't work, pivot, revise, make changes, try something else. If I have to sum it to one thing, most people don't regret things that they have done. People often regret not doing the things they wanted to do. An artist will always regret if they have a song in their drawer that never came out and they never tried. Somebody who likes sports will always regret not trying and going to pursue that game. It's the same context. Try something. You will never regret trying it.
Couldn't agree more. Lior, thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights with the audience today. For anyone listening who might like to learn more about what you're doing with your coaching, or might even like to connect to continue the conversation, what would be the best way to find you?
So my website, which is my first and last name.com, liorklisman.com, LinkedIn under my name, or even Instagram. LinkedIn and my website will be probably the two best ways to get in touch with me, and would love to talk to anybody that's listening that got inspired.
Thanks again for joining us on The Growth Shift today.
Thanks for having me, David.
Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.